My name is Roger Kuhn. I graduated in 2012, and my major was anthropology. I identify as a Poarch Creek two-spirit person. I was born and raised in the state of North Dakota to a Native American mother from the Poarch Creek Nation, and I also have a white father. So I grew up in a bicultural, biracial household. So I suppose you could imagine I've been speaking culture since I was a child because I didn't understand my own world, having a family, one side of my family that was European American and another side of my family Native American. And then as I grew up, I began to hold curiosity around my own gender expression, around my own sexuality. I then discovered the term two-spirit when I was in my 20s, and two-spirit, for those that may not know, is largely an umbrella term that Native American First Nations people use to describe gender and sexual orientation variance. And I thought, that reflects who I am as an individual. And really since then, that has led me on to my course of studies, what I write about, what I teach, and it is my hope that I can help other people who are experiencing gender and sexual orientation variant, whether they identify as Native American or as First Nations, or if they identify with another culture outside of that as well. I was a transfer student. I began studying anthropology while I was at New York University, and then had a change in my life and decided to move out of New York and moved up to Boston, and was deciding where I wanted to go to school to finish my degree. And I loved UMass Boston. I loved the campus. I loved that it was by the water. I also really liked the department. I took a peek at who the professors were, and I thought, I think I could work with these folks. And that's how I ended up at UMass Boston as a transfer student. I was really interested in studying American Indian studies. And I felt that the professors there had a pretty firm grasp on the areas of American Indian studies that I was interested in. I have always been incredibly interested in culture. I find that culture has helped me understand who I am as an individual. It's helped me understand my family, the communities I grew up in. And one of the ways that I have found to best understand culture is through that anthropological lens. And cultural anthropology has been my background. And I have just found that having lived now in the Midwest, on the East Coast, on the West Coast of what we now call the United States, and also having traveled around the world, having that curiosity about culture is always an interesting way to see the world. I'm always in that constant state of inquiry. And I find that anthropology, and in particular cultural anthropology, is just one way that has helped me expand the way I understand the world around me. After graduation, I went on to graduate school and I studied counseling psychology. Then I went on to attain a PhD in human sexuality. And so at this point now, to be the first member of my native family to hold a doctoral degree, it's been an honor and a privilege, yeah. My current work is I have a private practice. I'm a psychotherapist in private practice here in the state of California. Psychotherapy is not that different from an anthropology if you bring that cultural lens to it. And I say that because in psychology, we're really helping people understand and transform their experiences, which is not that different from anthropology, where we're helping people understand and transform their experiences just through a different lens. And I'm also a college professor. I teach in the College of Ethnic Studies at San Francisco State University, and particularly I teach in their American Indian Studies program, where I teach courses on indigenous sexuality, including a class called Native Sexuality and Queer Discourse. I also teach a class on Native American feminism. I find that working with students who are inquiring about their own path, it reminds me of when I was in their place and all the professors that I met that inspired me to do the work that I'm doing today. It's really challenging when you see your culture being reflected in ways that isn't true. Or when, I'm a Creek person, I'm a Muskoka person. And so when my culture gets lumped in with Lakota, Dakota, Hidatsa, Navajo, all into sort of one culture, it's like, no, not at all. And anthropology is problematic in that way, is that sometimes it lumps culture all together. That so much of what I used to know about Native American people came through a white lens. And I think that's why we need more Native anthropologists, why we need more queer people in the field of anthropology to set the record straight, so to speak, no pun intended. But really to take that and say, you only took it to a certain point and there's so much more that can be said. and to validate indigenous epistemologies within the field, to validate queer epistemologies within the field of anthropology, I think that that is certainly where the field is headed or where it's going. And I look forward to continuing to see the evolution not only of the UMass Boston department, but the field of anthropology as well, because there is a lot of work that needs to be done.